And we're live, brother. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. I wasn't expecting to do a show at 6:30 on Friday night tonight. I didn't know when the next show we were going to do was. But, as news keeps coming out, man, this is a good time for Longhorn fans. This is a good time for people that really cover the Longhorns. It don't matter if you're YouTube or if you're a paid site or if you're a media member. This is an awesome time to cover Texas Longhorns football with all the movements going on, man. You sent me a text earlier today. I was hanging out here doing some work from home today. With work, trying to minimize how many people go into the office and so on and so forth. And you sent me a message today, and I'll read it verbatim. And if you're not on Twitter, he said Sark is building the staff like a calculated mercenary with no regard for money, and that's absolutely right, man. And then somebody tweeted out earlier. Somebody tweeted something out earlier where they were talking about, he's going to piss Saban off, and you came back. Well, this is not a feelings business, and obviously he's learned from Pete Carroll and from Nick Saban and all these places he's been around in college football, how to put these programs together and almost not worry about anybody else's feelings. I think if you look at it, I think if you would have brought, a swing and a miss on Urban Meyer, obviously that was your number one fish that you tried to reel in earlier this year. You would probably pay him $12 million a year to come be your coach at the University of Texas. From all accounts, it sounds like Sarkisian is taking about 5.15 or something around there, $5 million a year, which will leave you at about $7 million in change to bring in these assistants. And that's what he's doing with regardless of whose feelings it is. And I think right now, really talking about this defensive coordinator front, I'll kind of go through the names here that it sounds like we've had an opportunity to either talk to or reach out to. And it starts with, obviously Lanning is the big name right now that's going on. Obviously defensive coordinator at Georgia. You had Golden from Alabama. You had Muschamp, obviously, that was fired from South Carolina, that's currently looking to be an analyst at Georgia, that's been a defensive coordinator in the SEC, but also a defensive coordinator in the Big 12. And then you're talking about Barry Odom from Arkansas. These guys, he had an idea of who he wanted to bring in here to run his defense, and it was SEC caliber guys. I was just telling Jeremy a while ago, and you've kind of seen it a couple of times. We went from really the Ohio State of the South to damn near the Alabama of the West. Which is a good place, man. Which is a good thought, because obviously what they've done at Alabama, do I think you can reciprocate that quick, fast, in a hurry? No, it's going to take time to build a culture, to build a program, something like that Nick Saban's done. But I think where we've started with hiring these coaches, made them proven coaches, not, hey, let them prove themselves, but almost proven coaches where they've been at, and bringing those guys in their fold and being able to paying them a substantial amount of money to come to the University of Texas is awesome. Your thoughts on this, man, this defensive coordinator situation?
Yeah. So we've always talked about coaches being developers, bringing the right kids in, and then, like you said, recruiting. And 100%, like you talked about, is we don't need to mince words. We don't need to protect feelings. We need to bring in the best staff to support Steve Sarkisian at this point that we can. And I think they've done that over the last couple of days. And we don't need to all gas, no brakes, man. Like, stop caring about what other people think about your program. Nick Saban doesn't care about everybody else he's beating in Division I football every single year. He's won 7 national championships in 15 years. And I guarantee you, at one point, he never gave a crap about Texas program, A&M, OU, USC, Georgia. He never gave a shit about those programs, and we shouldn't either. So, keep bringing the position coaches, like you said, that are proven, great recruiters, and make this program great.
Absolutely. We're talking about hires here, and kind of run down a list of hires and see if I can remember them all. Obviously, that they're all new to us and new to the University of Texas. So you're talking about on the offensive side of the ball, your offensive coordinator, the guy's going to run, that's obviously going to be called place, is head coach Steve Sarkisian, right. The offensive line coach is Kyle Flood, which was the offensive line coach at Alabama, who came in with Alabama with Sark from Atlanta. And then your running back coach is still Stan Drayton. Your wide receiver coach is Andre Coleman. Tight end coach is tight end coach, special teams coach is making $1 million a year, $3 million over 3 years, 3-year contract.
Recruiting.
But it comes down to being an elite recruiter, man, in the state of Texas. And that's filling out your offensive staff at this particular point, depending on if they want to get an inside receivers coach or if they want to do two defensive line, how they want to do that, fill those last couple of positions. Then you're talking about on the defensive side. It sounds like right now you're looking at probably one of these SEC defensive coordinators right now where there's smoke, there's fire. It sounds like it's going to be probably Lanning from Georgia. We're just kind of speculating here. And then Bo Davis on the defensive line, Raymond from Notre Dame, and then Gideon, obviously a University of Texas alum, football player, played 52 games for the University of Texas, who just came from Mississippi State as their special teams coordinator, is going to be your safeties coach. And then we'll see how that defense fills out, man. But if you just listen to it, really the only guy that has not been around football for a long time and coached for a long time is really
like Gideon.
But I think he brings you to that side of the ball. I think he brings you to the to the coaching staff. I mean, I think sometimes you do need that youth, like you had at Jay Belize, cornerbacks coach. I think you need to have some youth if you're going to have guys like Bo Davis, and really if Oscar Giles sticks around. I know Lanning's pretty young. I think he's 36 years old, came from Memphis, and then was the defensive coordinator. I think the inside linebackers, outside linebackers coach for Georgia, and then wound up taking over for them in 2019. So he's got very little time, but proven time. I can tell you, I looked at his FBI numbers today for Georgia and their defense efficiency. This year was 11. Last year, I think it was right around 2. I think is what I sent you, like that. Coach 2 or something, 2 or 3, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to mix your staff with old heads, diversified coaches, and there's not any on this staff. They got kids who could relate to kids. They got young coaches who are diversified, not set in their ways. Which is really, really good. Steve Sarkisian, I watched a 44-minute, and I know you did too, clinic that he talked about being diversified and showing as many different sets on the offensive side as you could. I'm very, very happy with the progress that this coaching staff or this administration has had over the last 4 or 5 days and allowing the coach to kind of pick his guys. And like you said, it's probably a money thing, where he was able to, you get Sarkisian at 5, where you could have got Urban Meyer at 12, and then you saved the money to be able to get those guys. But I think they did. There's no differentiation from what I sent you about 2:00 this afternoon to what I think now, and he's been a mercenary. He's picked the best guys for the job at both a developmental standpoint, a picking player standpoint, and then get them to get them to the next level. So I'm happy. I'm very happy with where we're going.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull up trying to find my gallery here, man. And I was going to pull up because we're talking about guys. They're talking about Lanning as a recruiter, man. You're talking about Nolan Smith. I was kind of run down his all-time commits here. Nolan Smith, you're talking about a 5-star guy, 99994. Brock Vandergriff, 9915, who's quarterback for Georgia. N'Kobe Dean, another 99 guy. Xavier Sori, same thing, another 98 guy. So with his little time, and again, Georgia is Georgia, man, and they recruit really well, just like Texas does, and just like the Ohio States, just like Alabama. Those teams recruit really well. But you're talking about five-star guys over really a 2-year period, man, of him being a primary or secondary recruiter, man. So,
and I guess that's the thing is although they're young, this coaching staff, they've been around big programs. Like Sark's been around USC, Texas, Alabama now. And all these guys have been around top-tier programs and been able to recruit. Jeff Banks, same thing, A&M, Alabama, now Texas. Like Oscar Giles, Texas, and has been here for 12 years. All the guys that are in this program currently are young, but yet have had experiences in other programs where they've had an ability to recruit out of the state of Texas. And that's kind of what the head coach said, is we got to solidify the state of Texas before we solidify anything else. And I know they have the ability to do that.
And I think that whole coast-to-coast recruiting thing is important, because at this particular point, you've got guys that have coached that have California ties. You have individuals that have Southeastern Conference ties. You have individuals like the cornerbacks coach that's coming from Notre Dame that has Midwestern ties. And then you have, obviously Banks and Davis that have Texas ties. And today, like he did he held, I think Sarkisian's probably been on what, 5, 6, 7 shows since he's become the coach. And his biggest thing is we have to lock down the state of Texas and then be able to pick those guys that we want to from other states, just pick the guys. And I think that rings true, man. So to get two guys like, obviously Davis and Banks that recruit so well in Texas is obviously important. And then Sarkisian doing what he does, man, and that's being authentic and being a people person. You could tell he's going to be aggressive. That's one. Two, you can tell that he's an alpha personality, but he's a humble guy, man, that is able to speak without feeling like he's
better than everybody else.
Everybody, yeah. It's nice to listen to him have a conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So the other news coming out of here, you're talking about recruiting people. Recruiting. I think right now, is there a chance we get Kamar Wheaton back to Texas? He hasn't signed a letter of intent to Alabama. There's a chance that the running backs coach from Alabama's may go, may be hired, I think, to Marshall, I think, one of those schools. But the other thought is if he does leave Alabama, Oklahoma was his top 2 school. But you got to think about it. His Alabama ties have now landed back at Texas. So maybe an option for Kamar Wheaton. Still waiting on LJ Johnson, who's supposed to obviously enroll early. So I think he may be back in both those guys may be back in the boat again, fighting for position for the University of Texas running back spot. So.
And if ever there was a desired position, it would be running back at the University of Texas. Talking about Sarks, getting out to the running backs, that's the first option. His first option. So seeing the progression of Najee Harris, but again, you got Bijan and Roschon in the fold. 32 Daniel Young coming back to and then Jonathan Brooks. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Ryan Creswell is asking if it's unconfirmed yet. From all accounts, it sounds like Bo Davis is going to be a Texas Longhorn. I don't know what it takes to get these guys officially named, and it's funny because really the time that they've been named is when you see Twitter account stuff start changing.
Right, it's crazy.
It's just weird, and I don't know how they go about, naming these guys. Do their contracts have to go through? I think maybe the contracts have to go through probably the Board of Regents, just like the head coach does. They have to bless off on those things, and until those things are blessed off on, more than likely they're not going to be named as the coach of the University of Texas. But for all accounts, if the Board of Regents is involved in the coaching search like it has been, then more than likely they're blessing off these things before they happen. They just got to go through the Board of Regents and get signed off before they actually announce these guys. Talk about this. Let's kind of get away from that situation right now. Talk about some negative news, I guess. Transfer portal. Keontae Ingram's entered the transfer portal. It sounds like Jalen Green's going to do the same thing. Kind of surprised by, not so much by Keontae Ingram. Love Keontae Ingram. Been injured the last couple of years, man. Lead rusher in 2019. I think Keontae Ingram just needs to go find a school where he can be the lead dog again, because I think he has the talent to be able to do it. I just think he needs to find the right fit. It may not be the best team, the best teams out there, but I think the best fit for Keontae Ingram, just so he can improve his draft stock going into this next year. And then obviously Jalen Green, it sounds like he's going to be entering the transfer portal. If I was to guess a landing site for Green at this particular point, it may be back with his old coaches, and that may be at USC with Greg Nybar and Todd Orlando at USC. But I know that he had played a lot of snaps last year, obviously back up to Josh Thompson, and he had decided, hey, you know what, let me give you a shot. It's safety, but now with Chris Ash, sounds like Chris Ash being gone, it sounds like it sounds like Jalen Green made us decide to transfer somewhere else, which if you think about it, man, that 2018 class, let's talk about that 2018 DB class real quick, right? Caden Stearns opted out to the NFL. Did he play to his potential at the University of Texas? I don't think he ever met his potential at the University of Texas. I think
absolutely not.
It was his best not. You're talking about Deshaun Jameson, who's currently probably if you're talking about,
no, you call him the best.
Let me go through all of them real quick. So B.J. Foster, Sean Jameson, Jalen Green, Cade Stearns, and
DeMarvin Overshown.
DeMarvin Overshown is going down to linebacker. B.J. Foster has a chance to probably be your starting safety this year.
Strong safety, yep.
Strong safety this year. But Deshaun Jameson is probably, outside of Overshown, who had to change positions, has probably been the best defensive back out of that entire class.
Yeah, you had Cook, Green, corners, right?
Yeah.
So let me help you out. So Overshown, Foster, and Stearns came out as safeties, right? So Stearns has gone to the NFL. Overshown spin down, and then Foster is strong safety. But at the corners, Jalen Green, DeMarvin, I'm sorry, good grief. Sean Jameson and Jalen Green, Jameson has definitely been the best out of three corners. You know, talking about Cook and Jalen Green, and he was probably the third as far as ranking out of 247 or composite, rankings. Was the third out of the bunch behind Cook and Green, but. Yeah, has performed, and that goes back to what we said before. It's like you have to develop talent, and you have to allow them to progress. And so, but like you're saying, Green, out of those top five, I'm thinking as far as NFL talent, I think Overshown will be one. Stearns is already gone, so we'll see what happens with that. And then, after that, it's Sean Jameson.
So Scooter Lannister asked a good question here. He says, was that 2018 class overrated or underdeveloped? And I'll answer it first here. And I think if you would have seen these guys at other schools, Ohio State, LSU, Alabama's, do I think they would have been developed better? Absolutely. So I'm going to look at it like this. I don't think they were overrated coming out of high school, man. These guys are elite talent, man. They really are. They held their own at majority of these camps. They held their own at these All-American games or Under Armour games with top talent across the nation. As high school kids, man, I honestly, I don't think they were overrated. I think they were underdeveloped at the University of Texas at their time.
Agreed too. Yeah. And that's why we asked for the coach to get fired after the TCU game, because we felt like this roster was good enough, both on the offensive side and defensive side, to win the Big 12 and compete for a CFP.
Damn, I didn't realize we were going to have. I figured it'd be a slow night tonight, but I didn't realize we're going to have 97 people on here at about 6:49 on a Friday night. But we definitely appreciate it. And if you haven't hit that like button, we'd really appreciate it. Currently at 41 likes. If you haven't hit subscribe, we'd really appreciate you hit the subscribe button. That subscribe button is going up really fast. We may be at 1,600 by the end of the night, and we really do appreciate that. The growth of this channel is important to us, and hopefully it's important to y'all. Again, as time starts getting closer to spring ball, hopefully our jobs will allow us to put out more content. But when Jeremy called me today and said, "Hey, Clint, you want to do a show at 6:30?" Absolutely. Hell, we might do another one on Sunday, because these are exciting times, man. These are really exciting times, and really going into really conditioning into spring, it's going to be just as exciting, because with a whole new coaching staff, you're going to have all new competition. Which brings up a point last night. I was actually kind of scrolling through some sites last night and looking at the size of the offensive linemen for the University of Alabama. And with Kyle Flood coming in here, you're talking about guys that like Willie Tyler that are humongous, like, 6'5", 330 pounds, 340 pound guys. So just
Andre Carrick is 6'7". Like, talking about the weights you could put on the frames of these guys that are currently on the staff. Reese Moore, I think, is 6'6" or 6'7" too. Like, the previous administration wanted agile linemen. I promise you, Kyle Flood just wants juggernauts, because they get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. Like, I could say I spent the last 48 hours of my human existence watching about 23 hours of Alabama film and watching Steve Sarkisian's offense. Get the ball out, RPOs, monsters in the run game, slamming people down to the ground continuously. It's gonna be a really fun couple of years under him as the offensive coordinator / head coach / play caller. I think we got the athletes currently, but I think we're going to continue to recruit that way. Sky's the limit, man. I'm excited.
It's again, it's one of those things where it's like the proof is in the pudding, and it's funny because when you listen to Coach Sarkisian talk about that, he understands that he has to win at the University of Texas, but I think he understands the process. I think he's learned the process, and I think his humility has allowed him to sit back and say, "Hey, Steve, what did you do at your other stops that didn't work? What did you learn at your other stops that you could bring to the University of Texas?" Because when he did that, he doesn't want to leave. When he did that interview today with who was it? Dan Patrick. He said Dan Patrick asked him a question about recruiting. He says, "What do you? How is it? Is it going to be difficult to recruit against the Alabamas and Nick Sabans?" And he said he kind of went down. He says, "Yeah, right now you have these schools that are coming in and they're cherry picking these kids and they're going out of state." He says we need to close the borders down and keep these Texas kids here, and then go out and cherry pick other kids in other
West
spots
Coast
and bring them back and bring them back to Texas, to make a championship team. But he said he wants to be here for the next 15 years, man. This is not. You can tell that he's humble about being here, and I think that's the difference between the old coach and the new coach. Is that the old coach, it was a dream job for him, but he didn't know how to put together a successful product. And that's not a product on the field. That's a product in an environment to bring these guys in. And I think that's the most important thing. And he understands that's the most important thing. It's not the product on the field right now. It's what do I do to create
former players.
Former players, alumni, all these guys back in the fold.
Yeah. Right. Because it matters. It definitely matters.
So if you're going through,
I would say some crazy stuff like FP doesn't want this smoke, like tag team match versus me and you versus Steven and John. They're a lot younger than us. We don't want that smoke, man. The talk trash to those guys, they're our brothers. They do a fantastic job. So we don't want no tag team match with FP.
I just want to, and then I seen that by Daniel, and then it looked like there was another comment that I really liked here, and let me see if I can find it. It was like
that's what I was laughing about, though.
Someone said, "Please keep doing these. Please keep doing these shows, man. It's like watching two good two homeboys or whatever. Just have a conversation about football, man. And that's kind of where we wanted at." Gamers Life said, and obviously, if you don't know, we're Jeremy was the NCO, senior NCO. Now he's an officer in the Army, and I'm a retired NCO. That retired from the Army. And Gamers Life said, "How many NCOs did you know that were shit hot and you put them in a role, they failed, then pulled them back a bit after they pushed them back in, they excelled?" That's where Sark's at. Because again, I think it's that humble pie. It's that piece of that saying, "Hey, you know what?" He said it best the other day. In coaching, you don't really become a coach until you've been fired. Because it's the way that these coaches move. They go from from GAs to a position coach to a coordinator, and they're really, really good. Look at Lanning. Lanning was working in Memphis as a position coach 3 years ago. Now he has an opportunity to move through the ranks in 3 years to be the defensive coordinator at one of the top 5 blue blood programs in the nation. Probably one of the top 3 jobs, if you look at it, the defensive coordinator. And I think what happens is these guys move. They're so successful. So they never get to a point where they've been unsuccessful, and unfortunately, they get fired, and it brings some humility to them, and then they get better.
Right.
And see what they've done to get better.
Right. And it's the same stories we tell, because you've been a recruiter, of 18-year-old kids. I've been a guy that talks to a bunch of young kids. You never know what you have until you have it. You never slept, feet to face on a twin bed till you were 16 or 17 years old. And that's what makes you better. It's hard times. And so if you can be that guy who can relate to kids who've had to sleep feet to face with their brother till they were 17 years old, then you really don't understand. But humility makes everybody greater, you know, and I pray that it helps Tom Herman be greater, and that he can somehow, you know, manifest the current condition that he's in to greater times. And I know that Sark has understands that, and it's going to be greater for it.
Can somebody do me a favor? Hopefully Noah or Katie35 or Scooter or Cody Phillips, can you do me a favor? Can y'all please, I guess it's Rico Finesse 3 times. His comment is Texas A&M will always sweep the recruits in Texas. Look at their conference. Tom Herman couldn't keep up with A&M OU. Can y'all please do me a favor? Can y'all please send him the last 5 composites of Texas versus Oklahoma versus Texas A&M thing, please? Thank you. All right, and we'll end that really fast here. So get to this player personnel, player development, recruiting piece though. I think it sounded like that Mike Roach from Horns 247 put out an article today where he was talking about, obviously there were a couple of guys that unfortunately are not currently with the University of Texas anymore. And there were some questions on what was going to go with Brian Carrington. Was he going to stay? Is he going to go? And again, me and Jeremy have conversation via telephone or via Zoom before we actually get on here and talk. And one of the conversations we had was really about Brian Carrington. And I think that if you go back and you look at the stories about Tom Herman and how Tom Herman really did not recruit these guys, but was really just brought in at the last minute, and then you didn't have a lot of ace recruiters on the really with your position coaches, it put Brian Carrington in a position where he had to be that closer.
That surrogate, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with the staff, you're not going to need a Brian Carrington as much as if you would in the old regime. And it's just because you've got ace recruiters that can recruit themselves. But if you look at the way that Alabama did it, it was broken down from analysts to player personnel to recruitment. They all had their own little roles on how they want to do things. And I think Cody Phillips brought it up earlier. I think kind of in passing, I was looking at it, I think he was concerned that Alabama really waits till the last minute to put an offer out there. And I almost say that that's really not the case, because if you go look at the way that Alabama recruits, and I'm not the biggest fan of this, what they do is they throw a whole bunch of offers out there, but then they say they're not committable offers. And I think sometimes that'll leave a bad taste in some recruits' mouth. But at the same time, if you're having to fight for it, winning cures all. So if you're winning as the University of Texas, recruiting comes easier because people want to come here. But the way they do it, I think, is important, because they do break it down from personal, really from player personnel to really analyzing these players. And everybody's got their own piece of pie. And I think I counted today, there were, I think 15 people on staff in player personnel in recruiting. I think there were 15 guys, and then there were like 12 analysts. So there's 27 extra people on Nick Saban's staff that we didn't have at the University of Texas that we could probably afford to have.
Like you said. Yeah, like we said, the analysts aren't, you don't have to, the only stipulations are on field, coaches, your head coach and your assistant coaches. And so your analysts and your support staff aren't really regulated. And like you said, we talked about this at the very beginning of the year. We talked about recruiting, that every offer that Tom Herman gave was a committable offer. I can't see that. If you want to be the Joneses, like we talked about earlier, like you really can't care, whether you're digging into somebody's staff too deep, like some people may perceive that Sarkisian is doing to Nick Saban. Like, you really can't throw your net out there to players and say, hey, it's non-committable at that point, because like I said, at this point, we really felt like we had with this last staff, we only had Texas and Arizona, a little bit of California, but with this current staff that we just hired, I feel like we're from the West Coast to the East Coast, and everybody's in play. Like, you can't be angry at the point where, you lost Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy's now interested. There's another kid, out of California who's now interested. Like, you got to no holds barred, recruit every kid. The first 25, if you got 25 available scholarships, the first 25 that are willing to come, you sign. and you go forward. And I think that this coaching staff will understand that the best 85 will play. There's no meritocracy is a thing. If you're the best player, you're going to play regardless of classification. And that's what's necessary for this team to be, in consideration for or to have the ability to compete for Big 12 championships and then presumably a CFP appearance. So
currently right now, so some breaking news here, and I think they're covered right now. Dan Lanning to remain at Georgia as defensive coordinator after being heavily pushed by Texas. So right now we're back in the defensive coordinator.
Back to the drawing board. Yeah.
Back to the drawing board. So the good thing about it is, that Steve Sarkisian's, he's going to push all in. You know what I'm saying? He's going to do what he thinks necessary to get who he thinks. He's not going to stop at one person, which I truly appreciate, because he knows that this defensive coordinator hire is probably the numero uno hire that he needs, seeing that he oversees the offensive side of the ball. Not the end all be all on that, but and I don't like to be the bearer of bad news there, but that was just came from George 247. If somebody knew, it's going to be them. But I guess he turned down the position to be the defensive coordinator at Texas. On to the next defense coordinator. We'll see. We'll have a defensive coordinator by the time that we start our football season next year. So we'll see. I'm an Ash fan, but it sounds like they're trying to keep Ash is maybe going to Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. It sounds like probably be the safeties coach up there. I've been an Ash fan, always an Ash fan. I think he did a remarkable job, and as the season progressed, he got better. The defense got better and better and better, and that's what you want to see, is that progression, especially seeing that they were installing a new defense. But we'll see. We'll see. There's nothing wrong with being excited about these guys that keep hitting the coaching carousel. But until it's signed and there's something saying that somebody's been hired, it'll be all pure speculation. What else you want to cover, man? Want to come down? I guess I'll look at some of these comments and see what we've got going on here.
Yeah, we'll just answer some questions and then probably cut sling load and watch Denton Ryan play Cedar Park tonight.
Yeah. Just a lot of recruiting information.
Happy with Flood.
Yeah, happy with Flood.
Ready to get Arnett out of here. I think he's going to recruit well. Go ahead.
Terry Freeman talking about Jerry Wiley. Man, it's going to get ugly soon in ATX. I think that means something good. Absolutely, man. He said laugh out loud. That's something good. Yeah, because he got, obviously one of the best tight ends coaches in the nation, in Banks. But at the same time, there's recruits out there. I think Donovan Green was, people are obviously, he's the number one tight end, a kid out of Texas. Currently, I think Crystal Ball to go to Texas A&M that is trying to figure out what Texas is going to do with their tight ends before making decisions. So more to follow on the tight ends under Sarkisian's offense. But obviously, if you got a guy like Wiley that's 6'7", that's as athletic as him, Sarkisian's going to figure out a way to get that guy the ball.
Absolutely,
it's players before plays, and he's one of the best to do it. Obviously there's a big game tonight, man. Denton Ryan out of the Dallas area and Cedar Park out of the Austin area. Obviously Tavian Sanders, Barry Alexander, Billy Bowman play for Denton Ryan. And then not so much, I'm not sure. We're from the Dallas area, so I'm not sure too many players out of the Cedar Park area there. But I tell you what, that Denton Ryan defense, man, is on a whole other level. They're really, 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 really good. So that'll be a good game to watch on Fox Sports Southwest tonight. The 5A Division I state championship game, and then you have the two 6A games tomorrow. Probably the biggest one being South Lake Carroll versus
Westlake.
Westlake in the father-dad game over there tomorrow, man, and have an opportunity to watch probably Quinn Ewers go up against Cade Klubnik, right, at Westlake.
Yep.
Two 2022 guys, man. Which should be exciting as well. So
somebody else, as we thought they Quinn would flip. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity for Quinn to come back to the University of Texas. If things kind of fall right, I really believe this is dream school. And if he trusts Sark like the players at Alabama trust Sark, then I feel like he'll find himself back in the Texas Bowl.
You know, people are talking about if we're going to have a winter, we're going to have a spring. I think what happened this year, obviously with the pandemic happening in about February, March time, decision maker had a hard time making a decision on if you could practice in the spring and then going into the summer. I think what's allowed you to do this year, since you've got through a football season, I think it's allowed them to try to figure out the best way to really mitigate the risk. So I think you will have a winter, and I think you will have a spring based on the fact that they've able to mitigate the risk of transmission of COVID through the team. Really during the fall time period. So I think you will have an opportunity. I think they'll limit some of that stuff. They asked, obviously Coach Sarkisian about doing Zoom meetings, and I think his answer was none of his coaching staff met for like 3 weeks leading up to the national championship game. Obviously, they wanted to limit the contact they had with each other going into the national championship game. And he says we've had to learn. He says the good thing about it, the student athlete is really, really good at technology. It really was the coaches that had to learn how to do this. It's not so much the players that are getting information. So I think really going into the fall, or really going into winter and winter conditioning, I think you'll see guys that are able to stay on the 40 acres, and because schools in session. I think they'll be able to work out the weight room like they weren't able to do last year. Moving into the spring, I think they're trying to push the spring game back because he wants the coaches to be able to mesh as good as they can, as best they can, prior to bringing the students or the athletes in here to start learning both the offense and defense side of the ball. Now that you're changing the defense side of the ball as well,
right? And this is the first year that the old regime tried to play it off like they had installed a new offense, new defense, and a new special teams. This is the first year they're going to have that. But I really think they have the athletes in the fold, the coaches currently on the staff, the recruiting staff to make hay next year. We saw the Alamo Bowl, and again, we're not trying to say that Casey Thompson, Bijan Robinson, and the end all be all, and deal with our burnt orange glasses. But again, you understand the talent that's on this current roster. I think Steve Sarkisian understood the talent that's on this current roster, and that's why he took this job. So
yeah, hell, they got Bijan as a top 5 Heisman guy at this particular point, man. And he's barely played any football. But people are talking about the Big 12, man. The Big 12 is going to be pretty good next year, man.
Based on the bowl season, right? Undefeated. A lot of returning quarterbacks too. A lot of returning quarterbacks. A lot of returning guys coming back to a lot of these teams. Nobody left from Iowa State. Oklahoma's probably going to be a top 3 team. I would almost put them somewhere between 1 and 3. Yeah, they've lost some talent to the transfer portal. I think their running back currently probably not running back is not where they wanted at, but they got a quarterback that's coming in. And then you're looking at Iowa State that really didn't lose anything. All their people came back this year. I think 18 out of the 22 starters they had are coming back for Iowa State. They're definitely going to be ranked in the top 10. And then I think Texas is probably going to land exactly where they ended this year. And that's probably going to be somewhere between that 16 and 20 spot, which I always think is good, man, because I think for some reason Texas plays better when they start higher in the AP and work themselves towards that top 5 versus being really, really high and then for some reason playing as the not the underdog role, which is crazy because I don't think Texas should ever play the underdog role, but for some reason we've always played well as the underdog. And I have people up here talking predictions, man, talking about 10-3, which this is not a rebuild at all. If you're looking at 4 and 5 stars on the current roster and what we have coming back, it's a reload, but you're reloading with a new coaching staff. You're reloading with a new quarterback. You're reloading to go and play well in the Big 12, man. So we'll leave those. We'll go through the schedule and do those things and then have some YouTube videos that we post and do those things in competitions and who we think should come out, as far as both sides of the ball and so on and so forth. Right. So we got recruiting coming up, depth chart coming up. Again, once the defensive coordinator has been named, we'll walk through the whole coaching staff. They're like Clint kind of annotated today. what they bring to the table as far as recruiting, what they bring to the table as far as experience, what they bring. We'll cover all that stuff. But just wanted to throw a show together tonight, essentially just to kind of end out the week in Sark's first week. It's his first Friday. He's excited. We're excited where this program's going, and just kind of to put a cap on it and
Absolutely,
go enjoy Denton Ryan and Cedar Park tonight, and Westlake versus Southlake tomorrow, and just watch good football this weekend on the high school level and the collegiate level, and get ready to get after it for our second season of Texas Football Talk, man.
Cedar Hill Longhorns going for
yes,
tomorrow, man.
Yes. Who does Cedar Hill play tomorrow? I don't remember.
I don't either.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, brother. So,
yeah.
But yeah, another edition of Texas Football Talk live. We're able to make mistakes because again we don't do this full time, but enjoy coming to you every chance we get.
D-Train still said we had 20 minutes left. He said, no, we still have 20 minutes, guys. I wish we did. Again, this was an impromptu show at 6:30 tonight because me and Jeremy definitely wanted to do something tonight. Like you said, with Sarkisian at the end of his week, man, it's been a pretty good week. We'll see what happens over the weekend with this defensive coaching situation, because really that's the only thing we're currently waiting on. It's really a defensive coach, man. And then obviously they'll put together their operations staff and football operations staff and recruiting and all that other stuff. But so keep your phones, man, tuned into these media sites. Hell, if you're not on that, just keep refreshing on Twitter, because eventually you'll get something that pops up, man. But I think we may be back, depending on what news breaks between now and Sunday. We may be back to do another Sunday show. Just be looking out for that. We'll definitely post that on Twitter and post that on Facebook and Instagram when that next show will be. But y'all enjoy this weekend, man.
I feel like we almost show, because it's Cedar Hill versus Katy and Southlake versus Westlake. So I feel like we almost show on Saturday evening or Sunday morning to highlight the 6A state championship games, because we forgot about the Katy Tigers. So we'll talk about that probably on Sunday. And hopefully we've got a DC named and a couple more commitments for the 2022 class, and we'll see what happens with the 2021 class. But yeah, we got some more shows coming up. Two things,
Ryan, man. Ryan, linebacker coach is more than likely going to be your defensive coordinator. And then Mark Leopard, the defensive coordinator, starting to worry me a little bit. I'd be worried if it was Tom Herman. I'm not going to worry about it if it's Sarkisian, man. He's got guys from West Coast to East Coast. And I can tell you right now, I don't think money is a thing at this particular point for this staff. So he's going to take his time. He's going to vet these guys. And I promise you, he's got a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C that he feels comfortable with at this particular point, pulling the trigger on. It's really just making sure that those people want to come to the University of Texas. So I think we'll be good, man. We have some time. I would love to have a defense coordinator by the end of the day, but it didn't happen. Where there was smoke, there was fire. But kind of where we're at right now, man. The coaching carousel will continue to turn, man. But hey, until next time, y'all enjoy your Friday night. Saturday, if we don't
hit that like button.
Y'all hit that. There's 116 people in here right now. If you don't mind hitting that like button, we currently have 69 likes. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us on Twitter at TX Football Talk. You can find us on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and you can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk. We will continue to have Twitter fingers through the weekend. You can bet on that. But y'all have a wonderful night, and we will see you later. Hook 'em.